Microphone check, stream check, microphone check, testing 1 2 1 2, stream check, microphone check, testing 1 2.
committee and was the one who invited our speaker. So I will pass the mic to her.
Thank you guys all for attending today's speaker series meeting. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lauren Snow, one of the student representatives for the speaker series committee. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Carolyn DeSena. As a second-year NICBIC student, Carolyn's expertise, drive, and a dedication to helping others is admirable and a talent that the entire Friedman School, including myself, can get great value from. Carolyn is the founder of the We Forum Group, an organization that aims to strengthen the health and wellness of communities by educating and empowering individuals to take charge of their healthcare choices. With minimal resources, Carolyn developed partnerships with educators, businesses, and political leaders to raise funds for free educational health and wellness programs that serve under-targeted communities. And with that, I give you Carolyn. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here at Tufts University today. Thank you for having me. My name is Carolyn DeSena, and I'm the founder of We Forum. We are a women's education forum, and we do two things. We raise awareness in our community, we help teach people how to take better care of themselves, and we raise funds specifically for free educational health and wellness programs. When I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you all about, I had many angles, but then I started to realize that We Forum was partly formed by my own personal journey. So I'm going to tell you a little bit something about myself. I was born in Singapore. My mother is Vietnamese. My father was a US naval officer. And I actually moved from Singapore to Vietnam, where we lived there for 2.5 years. In 1975, we left Vietnam. We went to Singapore right before the Vietnamese coup. And shortly after that, when the North Vietnamese came to Saigon, my mother went to the airport and she wanted to go get her mother and her father, her family, and her daughter. She went to the airport with her US passport because she became a citizen after I was born. And a CIA agent came and snatched that passport right from out of her hand, and he disappeared. She sat there and she watched the last plane leaving Singapore for Vietnam, thinking that she would never see her family or her daughter again. That CIA agent came back, he gave her a passport, and he said, if I had let you get on that plane, you would have landed, and because you're Vietnamese and because you're a US citizen, they would have cut your head off. Now, luckily, my mother did see her family and her daughter again, but that's a whole different story. But my father, being a naval officer, he went into the oil business, and we had this opportunity to live all over the world. We ended up in Lak Samawi, Sumatra, and Bandu Aceh, and lived in many places like Java, Tarakan, and Aceh Bandu. And we visited places like Borneo and the Philippines, New Guinea, Thailand, Macau, Beijing, Hong Kong, Korea, Tokyo. We were all over the place. And so what do you think these experiences gave me? These experiences gave me culture, it gave me diversity, and it gave me food. I grew up not being afraid to taste all kinds of food. Food was fun, it was exciting, it was adventurous. It reminded me of family, my home. Food was great. Does anybody know what this is? Durian. Who said durian? Has anybody tasted durian? You made a face. You made a face. Did anybody like durian? No, you did. Good. Oh, good. You must know. I see you like durian. This is from Southeast Asia. It is brought to the United States. It's frozen. But this is the stinkiest fruit you have ever smelled. It would literally peel the paint off the walls here. But it's my favorite food. My favorite food, not just my favorite fruit. I think Webster's dictionary says that this is like fine French custard pulled through a sewage pipe. Seriously. So when I was 10 years old, we moved to the United States. My father was from Massachusetts, and that season, I think it snowed 20 feet. And my mother, who had lived by the equator nearly her whole life, she was like, listen, you got to get me to someplace warmer, otherwise it's going to be Splitsville. I mean, how on earth do you go from this to this, right? So we thought about where we were going to go. It was either going to be Houston or Orange County. It was two big Vietnamese populations. And we ended up here, home of the Texas barbecue, the best barbecue in the world. Are you following my journey yet? Yeah? What I was introduced to was the American cuisine. Look at that. The American sandwiches, these 6-inch, 8-inch, 12-inch sandwiches that are 4 inches high. Has anybody been to Disney? The turkey leg, who's had one? Turkey legs in Disney, right? The Starbucks, these venti, mocha, cappuccino, frappuccino with whipped cream and caramel, whatever you want to call them. Then there's meat. This country, we have so much meat, and it's not just normal meat or regular meat, it's doused with sugary sauces. And how about fast food? Fast food chains everywhere, and you can't forget the Slurpees at 7-Eleven. Ew, right? So I was living in Meat Nation and Coke Heaven everywhere that I went, every store, every grocery store. Coke was on every shelf, every product. You couldn't get away from it. You were either drinking Texas sweet tea or Coca-Cola, and I have to say to this day, I do crave my Diet Coke. Are you following my journey? How did we go from all of that to all of this? So when I was 18, I went to the University of Texas. I was a radio, television, and film major. That was my backup because I really wanted to be an actress. By the end of my sophomore year, I packed up my bags, I drove to LA, I got an apartment, I started networking, I had all these free internships, I was working for production companies, TV shows, and movies, and I was auditioning. My agent called me one day and he says, I've got your really great audition. Does anybody know that guy right there? Do I have him? That's Rico Suave. He was kind of like the Justin Bieber of the 90s. Okay, you're laughing. You know him. Okay, thank you. So he goes, okay, I really want you to dress really sexy, put on some cat eyes, and just go in for the interview. You're going to be great, or the audition. I said, okay. So I put on cat eyes, and I had my sorority t-shirt and my jeans, and I go in for the audition. I walk in, and there are a bevy of beauties, the hair, the makeup, bodies I couldn't afford, and they're all in these cat suits. He brought us into this conference room and he started asking us questions, and the girls started to slink around and start to move their bodies around. I'm kind of like a fish out of water. I was barely 20 years old. And they started gyrating on the conference table. Needless to say, that was my last audition. The business was not for me. So then what did I do? The following summer, I pack my bags and I go to New York City and I get an apartment and I don't have a job. So what do? I put on my rollerblades and I'm blading through the city, through the sidewalks, through taxis, through all the busyness, and I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for a movie set because remember, it's a backup, right? The production side. I find a movie set, I find a Teamster, those are the guys that pack up the cars. I said, hey, listen, I need a job, I'll work for free. He interviewed me, I got the job. I got to work for Boaz Yakin, notable director, Lawrence Bender, notable producer, and it was a great experience. So I ended up meeting all of these people on Wall Street, and I said, hey, listen, instead of working for free in all these gigs and waiting tables and going from gig to gig, why don't we get you a job on the floor of the American Stock Exchange, and you can earn some money, pay for your couch in your apartment, and then you can quit in 6 months and go back to what you're doing. I said, okay, I'm not going to get the job. So I went to the floor of the American Stock Exchange. I met Stu Sternberg, who's a partner at Spearleeds and Kellogg. I did all this math in my head. He said, what's 1 3/4 plus 13 steens? What's 5/8 plus 3 steens? What's a quarter plus 3/4? Or what's a quarter plus 7/8? I did all of this math really quickly in my head. And within a month, I was working on the floor of the American Stock Exchange as an assistant trader, and I was 21 years old. Working on the floor was the pits. This is what you call a pit. I was basically standing in front of all of these people, hollering and screaming because I was on the other side. They were yelling and screaming and stressed and doing their trades and spitting and cursing. My maiden name is Cushman, and they gave me the nickname of the Crusher. And I can tell you that being one of very few women working in a male-dominated environment, I definitely lived up to my name. So after 4 years, I said, you know what, I've had enough of this. I'd like to have a different experience. So I asked them to move me upstairs where I can maybe engage with clients and just learn a different part of the business. And I did. I started talking to clients, and I had this opportunity one day to go on a sales call with my boss. And I loved talking to clients. I loved being with them. I loved engaging with them. I loved understanding what they were missing and what they needed so that I could package products and sell them something that I loved or that I believed in. By the time I was 27 years old, they moved me to London. I helped them open up their European operation. I was traveling all over Europe, meeting with heads of institutions, banks, and hedge funds. So what did this experience, how did this lead me to where I am today? Okay, so it means that I can get up in front of people, I can talk, I'm not intimidated, it doesn't make me nervous. I can actually use my voice to talk to people about what I do and to encourage people to focus on their health. It's like a performance, right? If I don't do well, you're not going to believe me, and I can't inspire or encourage you. Who's this guy? That was Stu Sternberg. That was the guy that I interviewed when I was on the floor of the American Stock Exchange. He ended up retiring and buying the Tampa Bay Rays and used data analytics and numbers to basically win ball games. He won the World Series a few years ago. But because of my experience as a trader, it means that I can understand numbers. I can understand statistics. I understand the research. I get to read all kinds of graphs and I get it. So what did my time at Goldman Sachs give to me? My time in front of clients. It means that I can understand, engage with clients, understand what they need, what their gaps, what their challenges are, what they needed, and be able to package a product that I believed in and sell it to them. So in this case, you're my client, I'm using my voice to show you a product and to sell you a whole new way of looking at your health and the health of the world. And with that, I hope that you'll think about how you can change and impact the people that you care about, the community that I hope that you will serve, and the world around you. So how did this lead me to We Forum? So I kept volunteering for the New York Junior League when I was in New York. I actually became a board member of the 52nd Street Project. They work with underprivileged children living in Hell's Kitchen. They teach them life lessons through theater-based programming. What I found out was I was good at fundraising and I was good at strategic development. I retired from Wall Street, kept working for charitable organizations. I became a board member of the Two River Theater, which is one of the most prestigious regional theaters in the country. And then I became a board member of Monmouth Medical Center, a Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas affiliate. So when they came to me, they asked me, we'd really love for you to design and develop an event. And I said, I don't want to do a tennis outing or a luncheon or a gala or anything like that. I really want to do something different. I want to understand, what are your gaps? What's hard for you? What are your challenges? And what I discovered is we had donor fatigue. Donor fatigue is when a donor changes their value system. They change the way they want to give money to a charitable organization. So what I wanted to do was to re-engage that donor. I wanted to engage or re-engage the community and cast a much wider net. They were focused on a small part of the community. I wanted to focus on a much broader part of the community. How was I going to engage the community in an event that would benefit the entire family? So at the time I got married, I started having children, and then I had more children, and I had 3 children. I was so focused on my pre-pregnancy body, my pregnancy body, my post-pregnancy body, then my breastfeeding body, and it happened once, twice, and then 3 times, and then I had these 3 little children that I was trying to take care of, and then life just became so confusing because now I was 40 and I had no idea how to take care of myself. I had no idea where to start. I mean, it was just no wonder. I was confused and exhausted, and I was just so tired all the time. I didn't know where to start. And, relatively speaking, I was very healthy. There was nothing wrong with my markers. My blood work was okay. I was eating fine, but I wasn't sourcing my foods very well. So I was trying to figure out what to do with my health, and I was faced with all of these questions and decisions about what to eat and what to do. Do I take vitamins, probiotics, gut health? What is this good bacteria versus bad bacteria? And do I do organic and vegan? And how much should I drink? And water? And do I do paleo diet and keto? And my nutrition was out of control. And again, you're seeing vitamins because obviously that was a really big deal to me. DNA, do I take a test? Do I do not take a test? What was it going to do to help me? And then do I do intermittent fasting? Not do it? Was it beneficial? Do I do Botox? How do I take care of my skin? And poop? Who thought that poop is color of your poop? Did that actually matter? I wasn't getting any sleep. Oh my God, and there was CBD oil and then carpal tunnel syndrome. I wanted to save the world. And did you know that the bacteria that they found in people who died of a heart attack, the bacteria that they found in their stomach was actually linked to bacteria that they find in your teeth? So that's why it's important that you floss. Okay, so holy cow, right? Completely overwhelmed, don't know where to start. So I start to brainstorm and I say, okay, if I'm having so much trouble trying to figure out how to take care of myself and I don't have any time, I've got 3 kids and all these things to do, I can't figure out which doctors to go to and what tests to take or where to even begin, I can't even imagine what this must be like for a family, a mother or a father who's making less than $50,000 a year, who've got 3 kids, when are they going to have the time to do it? I wasn't working at the time. So how are they going to find the time to do what I was looking to do? So we brainstormed again, and I used my Wall Street experience, my experience going to hedge fund conferences, and I said, you know what? Maybe that event you want me to throw is going to be a women's health and wellness conference, right? Let's get all of these doctors who can help us answer our questions in one place at one time so that we don't have to go out there doing all this research. We started with 30 pages of topics, one-liners, narrowed it down to 6, narrowed it down to a few pages, and we ended up with 30 lectures, 40 speakers, over 100 vendors, and 600 attendees our first time. Marion Nestle, I'm sure you guys know who she is. Godmother of the food revolution, such an honor to have her be the keynote of our first conference. She's written notable books like Food Politics and Soda Politics. So this was the first time that a health and wellness conference was actually for a charitable event. All the proceeds from this event went towards free health and wellness programs that were accessible to the entire community. We made $250,000, and WeForum was born. Oops. So we continued to do more research, and we came up with a mission. Our mission is to help strengthen the health and wellness of our communities by empowering and educating individuals to make better choices. We partner with local organizations, local businesses, government, educators to help raise the awareness, and then we raise that money and we turn around and we give it to free programs and services that are accessible to everyone in the community, especially the under-targeted communities. So 80%. I'm sorry, men, I hate to say it, the statistics do not lie, but we target women because they make 80% of all the decisions in a household when it comes to healthcare. Right? They decide which doctors to see them, when to take medication, what hospitals to use. They actually spend more healthcare dollars than men do, and they suffer from chronic illnesses at higher rates than men do. So when you educate a woman, she empowers her family, and together we will evolve a community. So we started to do more research, right? We were onto something. You know, we were such a big hit in our town, and we did more research. And this is what we found, and I'm sure you guys all know this, but please, humor me. 1 out of every 2 people dies from a chronic illness. Look around the room. Half of you are going to die from a chronic illness because of a decision that you made for yourself. What's a chronic illness? It's a physical and mental condition that lasts for more than a year, that causes functional impairment or restrictions, and requires ongoing monitoring and treatment. These conditions are the most costly and most prevalent in the United States. Persistent conditions are the leading cause of death and disability in the United States. Top 4 killers: alcohol use, tobacco use, lack of physical activity, and poor nutrition. So the research continues. 95% of all the subsidies goes towards corn, soy, and wheat. What are they producing? Cheap chemicals. They go into boxes and packages, and they're making processed foods that are going where? Where are they being served? Everywhere. In every town, every store, everywhere. And where they end up? Mostly in food deserts, right? And what's a food desert? I know you guys know this. Food desert is an area where there is very little to no access to fresh, nutritious foods. So why does it cost $7 to buy a pint of blueberries, right? Do you guys buy blueberries? $3.99, $4.99, $5.97. Who buys $7? Who's going to buy 2 pints of blueberries versus a burger that's $1? I know, but it's just hard though, right? Because I'm looking at the blueberries. I'm like, God, I just don't want to spend $7. It's so expensive because it's going to go in like 2 minutes. My kids eat them like they're going out of style. But why is it that this is not okay to have parents choose between giving their children or not giving their children a pint of blueberries because it's $7 versus a burger that's $1? What is this telling you? This is telling you that somebody is controlling the food system, and that's a whole nother lecture. Dare I say more? So our research continued to lead us to Ron Finley. Does anybody know who he is? Gangster gardener. He's from South Central LA. He says that there are dialysis centers on every street corner in my neighborhood, like there's a Starbucks in your neighborhood. He has to drive 45 minutes just to buy an apple that's not injected with chemicals. In his town, there are old, decrepit wheelchairs that are piling up by the garbage dumpster. He is a crusader. He goes around the country, he supports and promotes community gardens in low-income areas because he knows that the people in that area have to learn that good, nutritious, and healthy food comes from under the ground. So this is not an obesity chart, this is a diabetes chart, okay? But 40% of Americans are obese in this country, 40%. 1 out of every 5 children are considered to be obese. In 1995, diabetes, we were somewhere around 4 or 5%. In 2005, we were up to like 7.5%. In 2015, we were somewhere above 9%. 8 million people in this country do not even know that they have diabetes yet. What is this chart going to look like in 2030? Chronic illness, costs out the roof, cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, stroke. Our suicide rate going up, that's a behavioral health issue, out of control. Alcohol dependency, drug use, out of control. ADHD, why are young people getting so much? There's ADHD everywhere, what's going on? And compared to comparable countries, in terms of death, we lead in terms of death when it comes to mental health disorders and substance abuse disorders. So what is this really costing us? What's it costing us? We spend $2.2 billion a day just taking care of people with heart disease on medical costs. But what does it cost us? Lost wages, lost productivity, absenteeism, higher medical costs, higher insurance premiums. We are taking prescription meds like they're gummy bears. 18% of our GDP is spent on taking care of sick and dying people. That's nearly 20 cents out of every dollar is taking care of sick and dying people. By 2030, it's going to be 32 cents. That doesn't mean we spend any money on innovation, invention, research, education. Wouldn't it be nice if we can take some of that money and put it back into the public school system? This is unsustainable. We have so many problems in this country, like infrastructure. How about rebuilding our low-income areas? How about giving away free education to college students because they can't afford it? How about competing and leading the global markets in terms of technological innovation? We have to compete with artificial intelligence, with robotics, defense. How about curing diseases with gene editing protocols like CRISPR-Cas9? Energy, that's going to be a huge play for this nation in the future. Energy Vault, I want you guys to check it out. That was invented by Bill Gross at Idea Labs. But how, first of all, that invention blew my mind when I saw it, but my point is that how are we going to pay for research and innovation like that when 32 cents out of every dollar is going to be taking care of sick and dying people? What is happening? Is anybody listening? Compared to other countries, we rank very poorly when it comes to managing our costs and our outcomes. We're not doing a great job at managing our chronic illness issue. Some actually are saying that if we can somehow have a slight reduction in unhealthy behaviors, that will prevent and delay nearly 40 million cases. I'm not a clinician, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a PhD, but please tell me that I've got some of this right. Why is being healthy so atypical? My daughter goes to school, she brings in hummus, fruit, avocado, chicken, salad, and the kids make comments, she doesn't care, but my point is that why is that not the norm? Why is that so atypical? How are we going to solve our problems? There is no institution, no government, no school, and no hospital that can single-handedly reverse these statistics. So how are we going to do it? The only way it's going to happen is that people like you and people like me, we have to change our behavior, we have to change our lifestyle. And then we have to teach the people that we love about what we know, and then we're going to promote a culture of healthy living, one person at a time. It sucks, but that's how it's going to have to happen. So We do not promote perfection. We don't food shame. This is about promoting education. It's about being realistic. I was sitting in my car once and I was eating a chocolate croissant and we were getting a lot of attention, and I ducked down and I said, I don't want anybody to see me because I'm not making like a perfect choice. And I said, whoa, this is crazy. I sat back up and just finished my croissant. This is not about that. It's not about being perfect. If we can somehow change someone from making better decisions 20% of the time to 50% of the time, or 50% of the time to 70% of the time. How about getting a child to stop drinking Gatorade every day or soda every day? Could you imagine the impact that we can have on that child's life? Can you imagine that we have the ability to prevent that child from getting diabetes? So we formed 5 pillars, okay? People have 17 and 12 and 9, whatever. We only have 5. The first one is Eat for Life, how the power of food can heal your body. And that was the inspiration for our second Health and Wellness Conference. Again, back to Ron Finley, when you teach a child how to grow a carrot, they will eat a carrot. And drive-thrus are killing more people than drive-bys. Other notable keynotes, Susan Blum, Dr. Susan Blum, who's one of the most well-known functional medicine doctors in the country. And then we have Chef David Boulay. I'm sure you guys must have heard of him. He's one of the best chefs in the world. And he says, I don't understand why everybody's coming into my restaurant and they have so many dietary restrictions. What's going on? He shut down his most famous restaurants in New York City. He started traveling the world and going to places where there are very low incidence of chronic illness. And he started to study what people were eating. He started to study their ingredients. He came back and he changed the concept and changed the way that he was serving his clientele, because he knew that the food that he was serving was impacting their health. Eat for Life, we do all kinds of awareness programs. We teach people about nutrition, food sourcing, labeling, but we also support community gardens. We just make sure that they can sustain themselves for 3 years. So there was a school, my son's school is a Montessori school, and they built a 17-bed garden. And I said, how are you going to support this garden through the summer? And so we got together, we collaborated, we came up with this idea of having a summer camp, the Curious Gardener Summer Camp. We got all of these experts in the town to come and teach the students, and they got to learn about bees and pollinators and food science and sustainability, composting, aeroponics, aquaponics. It was great. But then we were like, okay, we got to get kids to come. So we contacted the Boys and Girls Club of America in Monmouth County. We contacted a school that had children who couldn't afford to go to camp, and we got them all to come, and then we found a sponsor. Monmouth Medical Center sponsored these children, and it was an unbelievable endeavor that we were able to teach these kids about taking care of themselves through the love of gardening. And we were teaching them reading, writing, art, math, and science, all through the love of gardening. Our second pillar is Move for Life. Now, going back to Eat for Life in my journey, so I thought that eating right was all about dieting and staying thin, but I actually was learning that eating for life was all about my health and eating and choosing and sourcing the right foods. Same with Move for Life. I thought that I was trying to exercise to lose weight, but it's not. It's about exercising and moving to stay healthy, but it was also about moving my body in the right way, using my bones and my muscles in a way that wasn't going to injure me. So we wanted to get the community to move for life, so what did we do? We created an event. It's called the Fit Crawl. Why do a pub crawl when you can do a fit crawl? We got dozens of studios in the area to participate, and everyone in the community could pick up to 3 classes to try out. They would go from one studio to the next, and each workout was 35 minutes, one right after the other. And then we ended up at a post-crawl happy hour where we would give them healthy treats from local vendors and caterers. It's a fantastic event. It promoted moving for life, and we're having our 5th one this coming February. You remember this, the rollerblading? Okay, back to mobility. Transportation, a very important thing in the 21st century, right? We've got Uber, Lyft. We're changing the way that we transport ourselves. We've got driverless cars. Elon Musk is sending people to the moon. We've got underground tunnels now because people don't want to sit in traffic. We've got Airbus. They're going to be landing crafts in the back of people's yards. Now we have micromobility. I'm sure, do you guys have that in Boston yet? Micromobility are these electronic scooters, electronic bikes. Yeah. They termed it micromobility. Well, I'm going to challenge you. Make rollerblading part of micromobility movement. It's cheaper, it's efficient. I get that it doesn't work in Boston all year round, but it definitely is environmentally friendly. Connect for Life. This is probably my most favorite pillar. This is about community, socialization, love, friendship, spirituality, relationships. This is about putting down your phone and learning how to engage and connect with other people in a way that's impactful. So we developed a group, the Wise Up Teen Advocacy Group, which is a bunch of teen girls from various high schools in the area. And they do what we do, but they pick one topic, they learn about it, and then they pay it forward by teaching other children their age or other younger children or other peers. So last year, they did the Hydrate for Life campaign, where they encouraged children to stop drinking sugary drinks and to replace it with water. They also promoted the plastic ban. They wanted people to stop using single-use plastics. So this year, they're doing a campaign. It's called the Connect for Life. So remember that 17-bed garden that I was telling you about? That school built that garden for, or in honor of, my husband. 2.5 years ago, my husband died of a heart attack. We were away in Vermont on vacation, and we were having lunch, and the next thing you know, I was burying my husband. This garden was built in his honor because of the love of gardening that he had and the love of nature. My children ended up naming this garden the Garden of Honor. So these girls, so I want to tell you a story, a personal story about me. So when I was grieving, my friends and family came together and built this support group for me, a strong support group of love, support, nurture. They wanted to make sure that I was going to get through this. And then all of a sudden, people out from the community came to my aid and started to build this safety net underneath me. People I didn't even know, people I may have said hello to once. Dads were coming over and offering aid and getting my kids to practice or to sporting events. They were coming bearing hugs, a look, a hug, a handshake. They wanted to give me time, books, flowers, food, anything that I needed. My community came out and said, we will be here for you. Please call me if you need me. I will do anything. Take your children to school, take them to the doctor. Just please reach out. And I want to tell you that that experience, what the community did for me, was so impactful. It changed my life to know that that many people were going to make sure that if I ever fell out of this circle up here, I was never going to fail and never going to touch the ground. So these girls are going to take stories just like that, and they're going to take other people's stories and they're going to create their own. They're going to teach kids how to put down their phones, how to connect and engage, say hello, look at somebody in the eye. Hi, my name is. What do you do? Where do you go to school? What do you like to do? Whose class are you in? Make sure that these kids who are sitting alone in the lunchroom are not sitting alone in the lunchroom, not playing alone outside in the playground. They're going to teach these kids that connecting and engaging can literally have such an impact on somebody else's life. That's going to be their new campaign. We have another group. We support Women Helping Women, and it's all about women whose children have ADHD. And these women help them navigate through doctors, they navigate through the school system, they talk to them about the environment and things that they're doing at home in terms of food and sleep and snack time and video time and iPad time. Wellness Ambassador Program, a very strong program that we have. These are all professional people, healthy or actually holistic practitioners, clinicians, doctors, fitness instructors, nutritionists, people who are experts in their field, who are promoting and living a healthy lifestyle. And we say that we are much stronger together than we are as individuals. When we have something to say, we say it together. These people are thought leaders in the community. We curate speakers from this group and we ask them to write also for our newsletter. Our fourth one, the pillar, breathe for life. Guys, this one is so important, right? This is about behavioral health, mindfulness, mental health disorders. We spend just as much money on behavioral health disorders than we do cardiovascular disorders. This is so critical. So many people are suffering in silence, and so many young people are suffering. Something has got to be done. And these disorders are actually a gateway to things like overeating, drinking, smoking, doing drugs, popping pills, not exercising, not sleeping. It's a double whammy. So what do? We talk about rebooting, retooling, powering down to power up, taking a break, taking a time out, learning how to breathe better, learning how to sleep better. We talk about mindfulness tools. We want to teach people how to maybe meditate or how to do yoga, putting those various different toolboxes or tools in their toolbox. This was so important to me because in my grieving process, I didn't know how to grieve. I never had to grieve like this before. I had no tools in my toolbox, and I needed to have a strong mind, strong heart, body, spirit, and soul, because I had 3 children I had to take care of. They were 4, 6, and 8 when this happened, and I needed to survive. Our last pillar is sustain for life. This is about protecting the environment, respecting the environment. This is about supporting our local farmers, understanding that the toxicities in our environment do come back and affect our health. Does anybody know this guy? No? Yay, one person, couple of people. Great books he's written. Joel Salatin, he's the lunatic farmer, the most famous farmer in the world, and he's from Virginia. He goes around the world talking to agricultural institutions, and he talks to them and says, sustainable farming is doable. It's profitable, and it's doable. We don't always have to do factory farming. Sustainable farming is doable. Advocates Changing Tomorrow, step up. We have a group. This group teaches our teen group, the Wise Up group, about respecting the environment. They work with them, with local beach organizations that do cleanup. They talk to people about recycling, reusing, refusing, reducing. And then our awareness programs. We have partnered with local school. We've come up with a 9-part lecture series where we get professionals to come in to talk to the teachers and to educate the teachers. And we hope, basically, to teach them how to take better care of themselves. But we hope that they take this information and infuse it into their curriculum so that they can teach their children about the things that they're learning. We have community conversations. We had one on the heroin epidemic and how that was affecting our county, our schools, and our family life. We do support these free programs, but guess what? We're now creating and developing our own programs too. There's one that we're working on where we want to go into a university and we want to create a curriculum for students whereby we can teach the students how to community organize, how to fundraise, how to go into the local community and understand what those gaps and challenges are, and to build programs to meet the needs of those gaps and challenges. Then we're going to teach them how to build a curriculum and deploy them into the schools so that they actually run an after-school program where they're teaching other children how to make healthier choices. So what's the call to action? What's the call to action? There's so many problems out there. I mean, I think that this group could probably come up with 1,000 different problems, right? All right, so let's figure this out. We're going to try to build a framework, right? An action plan, determine the problem, figure out what the solution is, and then execute, right? It's really simple. Like, we all learned this when we were in grade school, right? So we're going to talk about it, debate it, have a meeting, to have a meeting, to have another meeting, to have another meeting, and then we're going to execute. Is that really working? Is it working? Are the solutions working? Do we have enough people who are executing? We have the smartest people in the world who are trying to manage this chronic illness issue. And they're doing so with such heart and vigor and passion. But why do the statistics keep going up? Why is it not reversing? What's the problem? The problem is that we don't have enough people who are a part of the solution. The problem is we don't have enough people who are developing these plans, to put them into action, to actually execute, win or lose? How many of you are willing to put a plan into action and to execute, win or lose? Okay, so build a green zone. We're building a green zone in our area, right? You guys have the knowledge, you have the foundation, you have the resources, you have the value system. Your generation will solve this problem. I'm going to rely on your generation to make sure that when my children grow up, they're going to live longer than I do. So don't be ordinary, okay? Break the rules, think out of the box, break the rules but stay out of jail in the press. Cast a wide net. Understand what the gaps and the challenges are. Repeat your messages, but make them easy to understand, simple. Make them easy to achieve. Don't make it overwhelming. Come up with a simple campaign and then make everybody talk about it. Okay, problem. Define what your problem are, come up with a solution, and then execute. We did. Execute, 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 and execute. So why do you keep seeing this? It's because I hope that if you see it over and over again, you'll remember it. This is about behavior modification. It starts with you, and it starts with me. We are not going to solve this problem from the top down. We have to solve this problem from the bottom up, boots on the ground. Individual transformation will lead to global transformation. We think that we know what the solution is. We're developing programs, scalable programs that we're deploying into schools, into the community, and hopefully across the nation, but one school at a time, one community at a time, and one individual at a time. Challenge. What are you going to do? Create your plan of action, but just do something. Thank you. Questions? Yeah.
All right. We have now time for questions from the audience. So if you have a question, we can bring a mic over to you.
Yes.
It's for the
For the recording, yeah. Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
And sharing some of your, personal aspects of your life. It's interesting. I'm actually in the policy program. However, your talk really resonated with me because actually you said some of the exact things that I often say, often in public settings.
Yes.
And often I've met with confused, kind of perplexed expressions. So we don't know how to do what you're saying to do.
Correct.
So can you, and you cover such a broad, topics, and we're a school of nutrition. So could you explain in your personal narrative and journey how you came to the realization that the individual and your personal transformation will actually enable you to then connect with other people and create a degree of change? It's not simply imposing some change, but you have to inherently be that in order to see it.
Yeah.
Could you provide some concrete experiences or explanations? Thank you.
I think what I've been seeing is that the statistics don't lie, right? And we're seeing all of these major organizations, the CDC, the World Health Organization, they're all out there and they're all trying to do something to reverse or manage this epidemic, right? So these are the smartest people in the world. But it's not because they're not smart enough. It's not because their programs aren't good enough, right? So what is it then? Like here it is, it's just me logically thinking about how I came or how we came to the determination that it has to start with the individual. So it wasn't necessarily a personal journey of mine to determine that, but it was just saying, we just had to go out there and just get one person at a time and to change their behavior, and the impact was incredible. And so for us, we're all about executing, not waiting and talking about it and debating it. There's no time for any of that. We're running out of time. I'm not sure if that's answering your question for you, but that's how we just determined that whatever it is that we're going to do, we're going to go out into the community, create these events, good or bad. That's why I say win or lose, because not all of them work, right? So you just have to take a chance. If you think something is going to work, just take a chance. If it doesn't, move on, but you got to keep executing. You can't talk something to death. You can't debate it to death. I'm just tired of reading about it. I'm tired of researching it. I'm tired of talking and debating. I mean, that's all we do is meet after meet. No, execute, put into plan, see what happens. And then things just start to develop and things just start to grow. It takes time for that. It takes time in every community. You know, once you get people, you get one thought leader to understand what it is that you're doing. We have a whole school now who's thinking about this. Another thought leader, we got another school who's thinking about this. So isn't that good enough, one person at a time? It's like a trickle-down effect. But that's how we came to determination that it has to start from the ground up, and it's got to be one individual time. Someone, you might say, who has a little bit of influence over a group of people. That is tremendous, and that's helpful. That's why those wellness ambassadors that you're looking at, all of them think the way that you do, the way I do, but they're all out there doing things individually, hoping that someone will come to their talk and 15 people show up, right? But if we send out these messages and come together as a group, we are so much stronger, so much louder, and so much more powerful. So it's just signing up people one at a time. I hope that helps answer your question.
Are there other questions? If not, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the reach in terms of how many people you're able to contact through the programs that you've created? Mm-hmm. And also, what is the process of vetting and evaluating what's the message being presented? And part of the reason is coming out of the School of Nutrition, a lot of times when we're talking about interventions or programs to encourage healthier behaviors, there's a great deal of research and analysis that goes in to support that work. And so I just want to understand how you're doing that
Sure.
in the process.
Well, it really depends on, remember, we are a volunteer organization. We pay nobody. So everything that we've developed here was done on the backs of volunteers. And what do volunteers do? They don't give you 60 hours a week. They give you what they can. So all of that you're seeing here was built, using about 200 volunteers in our community. So going to your question in terms of who we're reaching. So when we have a message, really what we find to be more important than actually getting like 100 people in a room is messaging. We find that messaging is extremely important. So we had determined that when we do something in the community, it has to be easy and simple, not complicated. There's a lot of complicated things that I know that you guys are studying and that we all know about, but the problem is that if you want the community to make these small little baby step changes, you can't overwhelm people. You can't bombard them, because here's what's going to happen. If they see something that's too complicated, too many steps, they got to be somewhere or go somewhere, and it's just, it's not the right time, too much information, they're not going to read it. So if they don't read it, they're not going to know about it. So it's got to be simple. Thousands of people sometimes in our community. And the reason being is that Wellness Ambassador program that we were telling you about, when we put out a message, they all tweet it or they put it on Facebook and it all goes out to the community. Each one of them has a database that's maybe 1,500 clients to 10,000 clients. The hospital has, 10,000 clients. We've got thousands of people that we're trying to reach. We put advertisements in the paper that reach 20,000 people. Sometimes we go to the Asbury Park Press. It reaches 600,000 or 800,000 people. Monmouth Health and Life reaches 800,000 people. So it really depends for us, because we don't have the financial resources yet. It really depends on how big the event is and what the messaging is. So currently, we've been working with a couple of school systems in our area, and the people that we reach varies, right? So it could be a school system that's got hundreds of children. You know, we've got this awareness series that we're reaching 100 people at a time, but this is what I'm saying. You have to just keep doing it one person at a time. This health and wellness conference that we had, where we had 600 people attend our event, it was so much work to put this on because there was so much marketing, right? Everything had to go out on Instagram and Facebook. It was just so much work to write about all the speakers and to do all this work. We actually said that we're not going to do it again right now until we actually have an office where we're paying people. And the reason for that is because we need to reach tens of thousands of people. I won't do it again unless we can get 10,000 people there and make $1 million. But I need an office for that. So we're doing really well. And this coming year in 2020, you know, we're going to be raising money so that we can start deploying some of this stuff in areas outside of our community. Now, you were talking about, did I not answer one of your questions? You were talking about how do we choose our messaging? It has to be simple. It has to be simple. You know, simple is like stop drinking sugary drinks. The problem is that you have such deep cultural differences and values in all of these communities. You can't get them all to start completely switching the way they eat and celebrate and gather and congregate. It's just not possible. But if you can get them to stop drinking Coca-Cola and Gatorade and thinking about other things, just one little messaging at a time, that's why I say create a campaign, stick with it for 6 months, and then go to the next one. But these little messages, people will hear it. They will understand it. It will resonate, but it takes time. That's why when I was saying that, you know, why is this illness issue, this chronic illness issue, why is it not reversing? It's not reversing because we don't have enough people who have said, I am going to be the one and I'm going to make a change. I'm going to change my lifestyle. That's why it's one person at a time. It's just too hard to go in and change an entire community. But I will tell you, in our community, we're doing a great job. And we live in a very big community. So now that we know, because of what we've done, the programs and the campaigns and the events that we have are scalable, and that's the point, is to make them scalable. That means you should be able to pick it up and move it to any town, any school, any university, and they should be able to look at it with a little training, they're off to the races. Make it scalable, and that's what we plan to do. Yes.
Hi, thank you. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, I know you talked about food deserts at the beginning, so maybe specifically Monmouth, the sort of way that your organization is addressing structural barriers to healthy food?
Yes.
Specifically, right, like food deserts, et cetera. Yeah.
So you want me to address how we're addressing that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Aside from individual choice.
Okay, yes, so we support community gardens. So in our area, what we have done in the past is we interviewed people and we were looking for places to support community gardens, and we were looking to give money so that people could maintain them. And the whole point of having them was to make sure that the community was getting access to fresh fruits and vegetables. But here's what the problem is. We went into one town, and the only area that they had for us to put up a community garden was in a toxic wasteland, right? So we've done it before. We actually went into the schools and helped support some community gardens within a school, and that's really probably the direction that we have to take, because it's very hard to get volunteers to manage those community gardens unless it's already in place. The one in Asbury Park, for example, has been going on for several years, and we have asked to give them some money, but they don't need the funds because it doesn't require that much money to maintain them. So that's a successful one that's already in place. So we have found that the school just put up a 17-bed garden. Long Branch already has a sustainability program where they've got a garden in every school. So what we do is we want to give money to that to help them support it and maintain it. But we search for them, and really we're going to turn into a grant. It's going to be like a grant process. If we can find a garden that has a program that they can run and sustain it for 3 years, we will give them the support that they need. Unfortunately, I don't have enough people. I don't have enough troops and people and support to go out and actually manage those gardens for me. But we do search for them, and we have done so. It's just we haven't been able to do hundreds of them because there's not enough people out there to do it. And that's my point. The point is part of the solution is that we don't have enough people to be a part of the solution.
We'll take one more question.
Thank you. I am wondering if you could be a little bit more specific about two things, and in the other questions you've sort of spoken to this, but so if you could just define more specifically what are the communities, what's the community that you're talking about, specifically racially and socioeconomically, and then also relatedly, if I'm understanding correctly, does it seem like We Forum came from this original health and wellness conference, and it's there's a certain target community of We Forum, which is doing healthy activities and promoting these 5 pillars and fundraising,
Yes.
like primarily fundraising to then
Yes.
give money to a different demographic or a different community.
Yeah.
So if you could just clarify
So
both those
originally,
things.
yeah, sure. I hope I can answer your question. But originally, we were running it like a fundraiser. So what does that mean? You know, when you're a fundraiser, you have to target people who can write checks, right? So although I love everyone, I kind of found that wasn't really, it really wasn't where I wanted to be. I was noticing that what we were throwing in the events that we were having, they cost money, but who's going to subsidize it? Who's going to pay for it, right? I had to find people, and because this is a topic that's not like, you know, it's not like these corporations are coming out and going, oh, that's great, let's support that, here's like $100,000. I mean, we really have to work for our money. And so it costs money to run these events. And so I can't say unfortunately, but fortunately, because it's, it's not really where it's at. But the point is that we had to throw these events, and unfortunately the people, and we give away tickets to, for people who can't afford to come. But unfortunately the people that came were, our ticket was only $125. We were really trying to not target the uber wealthy, but try to make it affordable, to everybody in our community. But so then we took those funds that we raised from that particular demographic, and then we gave it to the hospital, and the hospital has all of these programs already in place. They have over 50 programs where they target. They're in Long Branch, and Long Branch is, I would say a community that could use, a lot more resources. And these programs were free and accessible to everybody in the community, and we supported those programs. And those programs probably reach over 100,000 people. So we chose that specifically. So we didn't start this. We started this as a fundraising, event. So we didn't start that. We're just now growing and changing, but realizing that as we grow, that we're actually really good at developing these programs, and that we're finding ways to resonate with the community, and the community is actually receptive to what we're doing. But you're right. Originally, it was one target, taking the money and giving it to the hospital so that they can run these programs, 50 of them. And now they're building a new facility, that's not too far away, that will be more accessible. It's closer to the highway, and it's actually more accessible to a broader community, which is exactly what we want. That's what I want, is to support and promote these free programs, for everybody in the community, especially those living in under-targeted areas. Now, I'm on this council in Long Branch where we get together and we try to figure out, what are the needs and the gaps of those areas so that we can target that area more specifically. I'm very new to this council. It's only been about 6 months, but I've already got lots of ideas, to share with the group. And I think within the next 6 months or so, we'll come up with ways that we can focus on that community specifically. So really where we were is we didn't want to be the ones to develop the programs. We were just going to say, we're going to identify who's already doing it. We don't need to do it. I don't need to develop it. I just need to raise the money for you, right? So that's what I wanted to do. So we're originally not in the program development space, but we found that we have a couple that actually really resonate and really work. But I don't want to have these programs where they're being run by professionals. I'm letting the professionals run those programs, but I'm going to try to go get sourcing and funding for it, okay, by having all these other events to fund them. Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.